There are some sounds you never forget, like a baby's first cry or a door slamming in anger, but for me it was the sound of her laugh. High-pitched and sharp like nails on a chalkboard. I was standing in the middle of a crowded restaurant in downtown Austin holding a bouquet of wilting sunflowers, and she just laughed at me. Her name was Savannah Whitmore. She was tall and blonde and had that perfect smile that people get when they've never had to struggle for anything in their lives, and she was holding my boyfriend's hand. Sorry, my ex-boyfriend's hand. His name is Cole. We had been together for 4 years and he replaced me in 3 weeks. I didn't go to that restaurant to start a fight. I went because I left my favorite jacket there the night before he dumped me via text. Can you believe that? For years, and I got a text message that said it's not working. I've moved on. So when I walked in and saw them sitting in our booth, my heart stopped. I just wanted my jacket, but Savannah saw me first. She looked me up and down like I was gum on her shoe, and then she did it. She laughed. She didn't just laugh quietly. She turned to Cole and said loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear, "Oh my God, is that the one you told me about, the clingy one?" Cole just shrugged. He looked at me like I was a stranger, like I hadn't helped him pay for his car, like I hadn't held his hand at his mother's funeral. He said, "Just leave, Miranda, you're embarrassing yourself." Embarrassing myself? I was the one who got cheated on. I was the one who got thrown away, but there I was holding those stupid sunflowers I bought for myself to cheer myself up, feeling like I was 2 inches tall. Savannah leaned over the table. She had this venomous smile. She said, "Don't worry, honey, I'm sure you'll find someone at your level, maybe a janitor." People turned to look. Some looked sorry for me. Others looked annoyed that I was ruining their dinner. I felt my face burning and my hands were shaking. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the flowers in her face, but I didn't. I just turned around and walked out. I got into my old Honda Civic and sat there for 10 minutes gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I wasn't crying. I was too angry to cry. So I made a promise to myself right then. I wasn't going to let them destroy me. I was going to build something so big and so powerful that they would choke on their own laughter. To understand what happened next, you need to know a secret about Cole. You see, Cole was obsessed with 2 things. Money and status. He always wanted to be the guy in the room with the most expensive watch, but he was terrible with business. When we were together, I was the one with the brain for numbers. I managed his calendar. I wrote his résumés. I fixed his credit score. He was the face, but I was the brains. The reason he dumped me? He met Savannah at a charity gala. Savannah Whitmore. Her father is Harold Whitmore, and you might recognize that name. Harold Whitmore owns Whitmore Logistics, one of the biggest shipping companies in the state, worth about $40 million. Cole saw Savannah and he saw dollar signs. He didn't need my spreadsheets anymore because he had a golden ticket. But here's the thing about golden tickets. They don't teach you how to run a business. I knew Harold Whitmore. Not personally, but I knew his reputation. He was a shark. A man who built an empire from nothing, and he was protective of his daughter. Too protective. I went home that night and I didn't cry. I opened my laptop and started digging. I looked up every single article about Whitmore Logistics. Every interview. Every financial report. I stayed up until 3 in the morning, and that's when I found it. The crack in the armor. The one thing that could bring Harold Whitmore to his knees. And the best part? It involved his daughter's new boyfriend, Cole. Here is what I discovered. Harold Whitmore was planning to retire and he wanted to hand the company over to his son-in-law. He didn't have a son, so he was desperate for a man to take the throne. Savannah was his only child, so whoever married her would get the kingdom. But Harold was smart. He wasn't going to just hand it over. He had a test. A 6-month trial period where the future son-in-law had to prove he could handle a real project. A big one. And Cole had no idea what he was doing. He faked his way through the first interview by memorizing stock market terms he found on TikTok, but I knew his weaknesses. I knew he couldn't read a balance sheet to save his life, and I knew he panicked under pressure. So I did something risky. I created a fake email address. A burner account. And I sent an anonymous tip to a business journalist. The tip was simple. Harold Whitmore's future son-in-law has a criminal record for fraud. Was it true? Not exactly. Cole had a dismissed charge from college for writing bad checks. It was sealed and it was nothing. But the suggestion of fraud in the shipping industry is like blood in the water. I didn't expect the journalist to run with it immediately, but he did. The article dropped on a Tuesday morning with the title Whitmore Logistics Heirs Fiancé under scrutiny. I was eating cereal when I saw it and I almost choked. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From power. The dominoes had started to fall. The next few days were chaos. Cole called me not to apologize but to scream. "Did you do this, Miranda, you crazy stalker?" I just smiled and hung up. Then Savannah called me and she wasn't laughing anymore. Her voice was shaking. She said, "You need to take that article down. My father is furious." I told her, "I don't work for the news, Savannah. Maybe you should ask your boyfriend why he writes bad checks." And I hung up. But the real show happened 3 days later when I got a certified letter in the mail. It was an invitation from Harold Whitmore to his mansion for a private dinner. I almost threw it away, but curiosity killed the cat, right? I decided to go. Not for revenge. For closure. I wanted to see Cole's face when his empire crumbled. I showed up in a simple navy blue dress. No diamonds. No makeup warfare. Just me. The butler opened the door and the mansion was ridiculous. Marble floors. A chandelier that probably cost more than my house. And there they were. Cole sweating through his suit. Savannah biting her lip nervously. And Harold. Harold Whitmore was shorter than I expected, but his eyes were cold. He looked at me like he was appraising a used car. He said, "You're the ex-girlfriend?" I said, "I'm the one who fixed his credit score, sir." "Nice to meet you." The room went silent. Harold Whitmore poured himself a whiskey. He didn't offer me one. He just stared at Cole. Then he looked at Savannah. Then he looked at me. He said, "I did some digging on you, Miss Miranda. You have a degree in finance. You have a 6 Sigma certification. And you were the one managing this boy's life for 4 years." Cole opened his mouth to deny it, but Harold held up his hand and said, "Shut up, Cole." Then Harold turned to his daughter, and this is the moment I will never forget. He said, "Savannah, you brought this man into my house. You told me he was a genius, but he doesn't know the difference between revenue and profit. He told me yesterday that our trucks should drive slower to save gas. He is an idiot." Savannah started crying and said, "But Daddy, I love him." But Harold slammed his glass on the table and said, "You love his face. You don't love his brain because he doesn't have one." Then he turned to me and his face softened just a little. He said, "Miss Miranda, I owe you an apology." I blinked and said, "What?" He said, "The article you leaked was garbage, but it forced me to look into Cole's background. And what I found was worse than bad checks. He's been stealing petty cash from my office for 3 weeks. $1,500. Cole went pale and Savannah gasped. Harold looked at Cole like he was trash and said, "You're fired. You're banned from my property. And if I ever see your face again, I will call the police for the theft." Cole stammered and said, "But sir, the wedding." But Harold laughed. A cold, dry laugh. He said, "There is no wedding. Savannah, you're going to therapy and you're going back to school. I didn't raise a fool." Savannah looked at me, and for the first time she wasn't laughing or smirking. She looked broken. She whispered, "Are you happy now?" And you know what? I thought I would be happy. I thought I would feel this rush of victory. But standing there watching a family fall apart because of a man who didn't deserve either of us just felt sad. I looked at Savannah and said no. I'm not happy. But I am free. Cole tried to grab my arm on the way out and said, Miranda, please. Tell him it was a mistake. We can go back to how it was. I pulled my arm away and looked him dead in the eyes. I said, there is no we, Cole. There hasn't been a we since you chose money over loyalty. I walked out of that mansion, got into my Honda Civic and drove to a diner. I ordered a plate of pancakes and I ate them in silence. No revenge. No anger. Just silence. You might be waiting for the part where I got rich or where Harold Whitmore offered me a job. But that didn't happen. He respected me, sure, but he was still a billionaire and I was still the ex-girlfriend. But here is what did happen. 6 months later I started my own consulting firm. Small. Just me and a laptop. I help small businesses fix their finances and I make enough to pay my rent and buy my own sunflowers. And Cole? Last I heard he moved back in with his parents and he's selling used cars. Savannah actually emailed me a real apology. She said she was insecure and she said she laughed because she was scared of me. I forgave her. Not because she deserved it, but because I deserved peace. The moral of the story isn't that revenge is sweet. The moral is that your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. Cole didn't leave me because I wasn't enough. He left because he wasn't enough for me. Savannah laughed because she was terrified that a woman with nothing but brains could outshine her money. And in the end the brains won. Not by destroying them but by surviving them. So if you're watching this and you're going through a breakup or a betrayal or someone just laughed at you in a restaurant, hold on, don't beg. Don't scream. Don't throw the sunflowers. Go home. Open your laptop. And find your crack in the armor. Not to hurt them but to save yourself. Because the best revenge isn't destroying their life. It's building your own. I'm Miranda. Thanks for listening to my story. If you want to hear more about how I built my business from nothing, hit that like button and subscribe. And remember, the person who laughs last isn't the one who wins the fight. It's the one who walks away from it. See you in the next one.